So Julio, I looked at this site improvement approach to building a model. So originally I had a corridor model that is this road model here, which I built out as a road model with all of my strata layers, my finished grade, and I built subgrades in a normal way using a template. But then I just took the finished grade model and created a new site improvement based model here. And for that I applied site improvements. So I went into the MSI manager and I created the materials I needed for earthen, so rock, soil and topsoil, and for select materials, asphalt, backfill and subgrade. And then I created some site improvements for pavement stacks and said, okay, asphalt and subgrade has asphalt at the top and subgrade underneath, both 6 inches thick. And then backfill and subgrade, I made them both 6 inches thick, so the backfill sits on top on that shoulder detail. And to make that work in the model, when I built this model, what I did was I split the, if I go to the road finish model here, what I did was I split my shoulder into 4 foot and 2 foot section. So I created a shoulder 1, which is 4 feet from the edge of pave, and then shoulder 2, which is 2 feet from the shoulder 1. This is the area where I'd have the backfill and subgrade stack, and in here I would have the asphalt and subgrade stack. Did that on both sides of the road here. And that way, when it generates the break lines in the model, I get a break line along this shoulder stack area. This is the shoulder 1 to shoulder 2 area right here and right here. So I could apply a different stack of material to those. And then I just used the site improvement command to apply site improvements in this area, this area, this area, and this area for the pavement and asphalt pavement and subgrade stack. Then I applied the backfill and subgrade stack in here and here, and that way I get the right mix of materials across this cross section. And if you look at that as a surface slice, so at the end of all that I then create a subgrade surface for the bottom of backfill, the bottom of asphalt, and the bottom of subgrade. That way I get the 3 surfaces I need to build my corridor model. And so if I do a quick slice through here, just to show you what that looks like, is basically this is the finished grade model. This is the base of asphalt going from this point here across to here. This is the backfill. This is the backfill base over here. And then this is the subgrade stack all the way across from edge to edge. And that way when I put this in the corridor, I say above this surface is subgrade, above this surface is backfill, and above this surface is asphalt. And so through that process, I've managed to build a subgrade adjusted model just using site improvements. And then I basically densified the models to get them all to match, because obviously on curves, when we're building it from surfaces, we need the surfaces to be accurate through the curve. So I basically densified all of those surfaces through here. And then I built this second road model, and a couple of things in here. Let's just go into this first. So in here I basically built the model, used the, called it site improvement based, used the same horizontal and vertical alignment, used the same original ground model. And in this case, then I referenced all of these surfaces in here. And the reason I do this is so that I can change the arc to chord offset calculation on all those surfaces so that they all match up properly. And you'll see that in just a minute when I open up the template editor. And so now, all the way through here, I've got these surfaces referenced. And then I also referenced in the right-of-way lines left and right, and also the storm line, which I've got running down the center line here. This blue line here is a storm line, just to kind of fake up all the things that you might want in a corridor. Now this surface approach basically can be any size of surface. It doesn't really matter. It could be mosaics of several surfaces combined, and as long as you've got the break lines set to sharpen texture boundary, you can apply those textures in the same way, and then you can use this alignment to create your cross sections down the road. So I haven't done a full job like that. I just wanted to mock up something to make sure that this would all work for you. So now I built the road model in here. If I go to edit this, in here, this was relatively simple to build. So I said use the surface instruction for finished grade. So I used the finished grade model from this model to get me the surface for the finished grade. And then I used the base of asphalt surface, which is this surface going across here, as the second surface. And that one I just said it's the asphalt surface, and it's got asphalt above it. So that was from the edge of pave here to the edge of pave here. And then the second surface was the base of backfill, so that's this little bit of surface here and this little bit of surface over here, and that basically has backfill above it. That's the blue color. And then the last surface is the bottom of subgrade, which goes from here to here, and above that is the orange subgrade material. And so I set those up, and the only other thing I did in here was I click on each of these surface cross sections and just change this adjust to arc to chord offset function to yes on each of the surface cross sections. And these are coming up because they're referenced to the corridor, so I can select them and do this referencing here, and in this case did the same thing for these. And all that does is it basically means when you're on a curve, when you're cutting chords through the model, if you slice it, then this point wouldn't be in exactly the right location. So this adjustment basically looks at the curvature of the road, looks at the offset of this point, and makes an adjustment based on the arc to chord, so this is actually correct at whatever station I stop at. If I don't do that, then what you can see is these don't exactly match when you're in the chord section. So it's a minor defect from a point of view of thing, but this allows you to correct for it if you want to. So having done that, now you've got your cross sections all looking correct. I've got my strata, I've got my corridors with the subgrades, and my fill materials and my cut materials all calculated. They're all reporting okay. And so at that point then, this surface that it creates here, you don't need it because that's just an output of the surface that we're creating in the template, and we're not interested in that because we've got the surfaces elsewhere. And so then I just went down here to my section C, NCC sections sheets. I reference the site improvement based road, and then I basically go to the editor to make sure it looks okay. And in the editor you can see that it's picking up this backfill material, the subgrade, and the pavement all the way through here correctly. And if I jump backwards and forwards through here, you can see that the cross sections, no matter where I stop, are looking good. And I'm getting all my materials. Now I'm not using solid fills like in your case, but this is solid fill, so this would be the same if you chose those. You can make them transparencies. This is solid fills down here, so all this can be made in solid color if you want it to. Your labeling, I got a legend. I have the cut fill areas over here of the total cut, total fill, and the topsoil, rock and soil for the excavation, and asphalt and subgrade for the backfill. Now I didn't add another label for the backfill, but I could have just added that as another label here as a subgrade backfill. Same thing over here. I didn't bother adding that over here, but I could have done and add these in. So then I'd have my volume quantities and my subgrade quantities for earthworks and subgrade here, and my area quantities over here. And then you can basically label the points and attributes across here as you see fit to get what you want. And you can see I'm picking up the right-of-way line left and right in here, as well as I'm picking up the storm line that I had, or the gas line in this case, at this elevation, at this point right here in the cross sections. All the offset labels, station labels, are all user definable, so you can change the fonts and the look and feel. And if you don't want the grids, you can turn the grids on and off as well if you want to. So if you just want to see the labels, you could go down to grids here and say in here, the grid settings for major and minor grid lines, you can just actually turn those layers off if they're created, or you can go in here, I think, somewhere and turn them off. When I do the grid location, it tells me to do it by so here it asks me where I want my grid to be. Where is it? On here. Somewhere along here I can turn these off. Maybe it's just in here. Grid location, none. There we go. And so now I've got the look that you had. The only thing I'm missing there is a centerline axis here, if that's the case. I prefer to put the section lines on, and then I would create the grids, and then I could just turn off the minor grids and maybe make my major grids much bigger or something like that to get the look that you want for the centerline. But anyway, you can do all that changes in here if you need to. And now I'm ready for this. I can then go to build sheets and build all my cross-section sheets from this. And I'm getting now the cross-sections cut. Now obviously if you build a mosaic surface or a composite surface out of all this, then you would have to kind of limit the cross-sections to where they're slicing. And you can put boundaries around the surfaces, the composite surface, to kind of limit it, or you can limit left and right settings of the cross-sections themselves to get what you need. But I think in general, if you break the finish grade model up in the right way to get your subgrade shapes the right shape, then as long as you've got the 3D strings to apply those pavement stacks, you can actually do that. Okay, the only area that you would have an issue is under curb line, actually, because curb has got an irregular shape at the top and you can't use site improvements to apply that. So the way you would have to do that would be to create basically a rectangular block for the curb, which isn't ideal. And I'm sure we could work around it somehow, but haven't had time to think through that too much. But anyway, in general, the site improvements for the pavement can be applied this way. I still think that the template approach is a better approach, but this works pretty well for giving you the cross sections in the large situations. Say curb and gutter, I would have to think about how you would do that for the different material stacks, because when you have an irregular shape finish grade, obviously the pavement site improvements are just being applied vertically beneath that, and when you've got a curb and gutter that's in regular shape, you'd have to break the curb and gutter into pieces, and the sloping face you'd have to just ignore or something like that. But I'm sure we could come up with a way of doing it, but it's just clumsy, actually, from my point of view. But anyway, in general, you can get what you want out of it using this method, and hopefully that might help you. Okay, let me know if you need anything else. Thanks.